Kenya was a totally new experience for me. It was really difficult in a lot of ways, and very like eye-opening at the same time, just because I'd never been in a culture with that much poverty, where it's everywhere. It's everywhere that you look. You can't avoid it and you can't escape it.
We spent the week serving the Squatters Hill Nursery, and they're serve like 200 to 300 kids that are all orphans. Some of them have been orphans because of AIDS, and some of them have just been growing up in the slums, and they just are in like pretty deplorable conditions.
It blew my mind. Like squatters, the first day just driving up there, the drive was intense because you're driving like on not a normal road. And there's people on the side of the road that don't have shoes on or clothes on. It's just crazy to see that here, like in America, we have like paved roads, there are buildings everywhere, and there's nothing really like that there. When I first walked into Squatters and saw all those kids with their like torn uniforms, and they were covered in bugs and pee and all of that, and it's just like crazy to see that that was like the norm there, and that was not normal for me at all. But it really pulled on my heartstrings a lot just to see that that is how a big chunk of the world lives.
We also worked at the Mercy School, and that's a smaller school, and they also serve kids and like really small children that are in the conditions of poverty.
So the Kenyans have very little. Like, these kids are in an orphanage, and the food isn't great, and some of the teachers aren't nice, and it's just hard all the time. But they're happy.
Just how happy they were all the time, that's what impacted me the most. Just to be around you, and how proud they were when they did the alphabet correctly or something, and they'd run up to you and show it to you, and they were just like beaming and smiling.
They have so much gratitude for what they have, even if it's not a lot, but they still like appreciate it. They still like they praise God, like they're really into like worship, like they're really into their studies. Like I just feel like they're just really like determined to like get that one shot to go to America and like to get schooling or like get an education.
Kenyans have found this contentment that I really want. Like, that is something I really want, because they're happy. With nothing, they're happy.
The thing I most loved about Kenya was kids. They just love you so much more than any other kind of human love.
When I first saw all the kids, I had the biggest smile on my face. Like, there are like hundreds of them, and they're all just like running around, like they're screaming, laughing, like they're so happy.
I have never felt more content in my entire life than when I was running around with all these kids for those couple days.
Carrying a child around for 4 hours, not talking, not speaking, just holding him because he needs to be held. That's contentment. And I want to find that here. I want to find that peace.
I struggled with the tension on the first day of just seeing all of the poverty at Squatters, and just there not being enough resources for all these kids. It's overwhelming, and at first I didn't know what to do, and then I realized that I am here for this, and this is what I'm doing. I'm here for 3 weeks. Like, let's do everything that I can to help these kids in the short amount of time that we have.
And I feel like when we got there, all the training paid off, and we all like pulled it together, and we all worked really well as a team.
For a week we worked at the big school, which is known as TREC, or the Roberts Education Center, which is an 800-bed orphanage and school with a preschool and a middle and high school. There are about 60 little baby preschoolers and 800 middle to high schoolers.
All of the kids, anywhere we went, whether it was at Squatters or Mercy or the big school, you walk in and it's like you're at a family reunion, or it's like you're the cousin that they haven't seen in years, and they just all run up to you and they're so smiley and happy, and they just love on you.
Kenyans were so welcoming. Like, all the time, regardless of who we were and what we were doing there, everybody was always like, hey, come talk to me. Come see me. Like, come know me. Let me see you.
So at the big school, I helped with life skills, We covered a lot of hygiene, sex ed, and just like how to live your life, I guess. They'd never had anyone to tell them how to clean themselves, how to brush their teeth, stuff like that with the little kids. Teaching them how to do stuff, I felt like their parents, because they don't have any, so I was sort of their substitute parent.
All of our groups that were working in the small group section were all focused around one main idea, which was identity. And so all of us were trying to see how you have been shaped and who you are right now and who you would like to be. So when we started working with the kids at Trek, everybody had their walls up, including people on our team. I didn't understand why until after, when I learned that these kids were from the slums, where they had to fight for everything, where they couldn't show any weakness, or they would lose like anything they had. The coolest thing about this trip was that as we got to know them, those walls came down, and like we got to see these kids and how like us they were, even though our experiences were so profoundly different. So we gave them all communion on the 4th day we were there, and Jamie had set it all up, and she had said, if anybody needs a fresh start, a clean slate, now is the time when you can ask God for forgiveness. And she said, just think about that for a second. And the whole room is silent. And then in the back of the room, like 3 boys, like the old guys who have lived their entire lives like as a fight, get up and start communion. And that feeling of, oh my God, they get it. Like, they get it. Of walking up, in me, I found that's God. Yeah, I think that Kenyans, they have such a deeper, more raw relationship with Christ than we do, because they will depend on God for their next meal, the rain to come and bring them crops. Like, it's so much different, so much more different than ours is.
When I went there and saw that this is how these kids are living, I was like, there's no way that God could be good if this is how people are living. Like, that's not right. And then once I realized that we were there to help them, like He sent us there to provide love and resources for them, like that just made me realize that God is working within us and we are working for Him.
As far as like my faith, I have always been kind of more of a doubtful person. Like I've grown up knowing that like God is there and that He's good and that He takes care of us, but I never really believed it 100% until in Kenya, because I had so many doubts and worries. I'm a huge worrier and a huge pessimist, and that all got flip-flopped over this trip. I feel like overall I'm just a lot more positive in the way that I live and in my faith, and I definitely have a lot more trust in God.
Well, since I've gotten home, I've just been a lot happier and more grateful for everything that I have after seeing that, and just looking around and seeing all the wonderful things that God has made and that are still being made. Like the mountains, you just look up at them and think how beautiful they are.
My grandmother always used to get on our family for wasting food, and I was like, whatever. But going to Kenya where they need food, it's always been like, I'm probably never going to waste food again because of what I've seen and how lucky I now see myself as.
It's really shifted my perspective on just how I live my everyday life. Like, I worked so hard for every hour of every single day that we were there, and now that I'm here, I'm realizing there are things I can be doing here to help other places, help back in Kenya, help with Kenya Partners.
But I hope that they can get through schooling, that they go to a good university, that they can get a good job, and slowly bring their families and themselves out of poverty. And I think that's the ultimate goal of going to Kenya.